Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. My name is Mimi Adams, and my pronouns are she, her, they, them, or Supreme Commander. And I am a worship associate for our congregation. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the holy, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. If this is your first time with us, we'd love to get to know you. Please sign our guest book, our guest sign-in book in the foyer, where you can also sign up to receive our church announcements emails. You can also speak with our greeter, Mike McNaughton, who's out there. For more information about our church, we have lots of worship options for young children. Up front, where we have our intention table with coloring pages and other activities, as well as a rug to sit on the floor and play. Kids can also stay seated with their parents or caretakers to go to our library quiet room, which is over there, and you go out and around. Now I lost my place. And our nursery is down the hall for kids 0 to 3 years old. Our nursery coordinator, Sarah Hamoud, would be happy to check in your young kiddos. Today, kids will stay in the service, and they will have time after the service to go out to play, or if it is too cold, play games in the assembly room. Tara Height, our Director of Lifespan Religious Education, is away this weekend. If you have questions about our programming for kids and youth, please talk with Elizabeth Portillos, our children's RE teacher. Our minister, Reverend Tina Dio, is also away this weekend and will be back next week. Today, we have our special guest speaker, Mike Adams. Notice his last name is Adams, just like me. And let me tell you, sometimes he really knows how to piss me off. But even if he does, thank you, Mike, for being with us here this morning. Announcements. Our weekly announcements come out in an email every Thursday around noon. Tara also sends announcements as text messages. You can sign up to receive these emails and phone texts in our sign-in book in the foyer or on our website by speaking to Tara or Reverend Tina. Volunteers and donations are still needed for the Bazaar. I keep doing that and then I lose my place. On Saturday the 7th, you can use this QR code to sign up. Please look for your church announcements email on Thursdays or look for the announcement slides before and after the service to find out about all our awesome church events that are coming up. Please join us after the service in Fellowship Hall, get coffee and juice, then join James Carroll, who will be leading his comparative religions class in the Fellowship Hall. Kids can meet with Elizabeth, and there is also child care available in the nursery. Elizabeth will also be at the co-op around 1 p.m. today for our open invite co-op lunch. Then you can join James Carroll, who will be leading his comparative religions class in the Fellowship Hall at 11:45 when kids can meet with Elizabeth. And there is childcare available in the nursery. Elizabeth will there seems to be some repetition in my script here. At 2 p.m. today, the teen group will meet in the game room and the parent group will meet in classroom at 4. At 4 p.m., there will be a discussion group of the play Love, Loss, and What I Wore, which is from the play that's been showing at the Los Alamos Little Theater. Next Sunday, we will be having our Three Sisters potluck after the service. Please bring a Three Sisters themed dish. For those who are not familiar with what the Three Sisters are, they are corn, beans, and squash. Please bring a corn, bean, and or squash themed dish to share. Other dishes and food are welcome too. Store-bought foods are welcome as well. Please label your ingredients for allergy purposes, including chili. All are welcome to help set up at 10 a.m. and clean up after the potluck. Then, after the potluck, you can go walk off all your food at the crop walk to end hunger at the middle school gym. Registration starts at 1:15 p.m. Walk starts at 2 p.m. Please look for emails and texts as well as the announcement slides before and after the service for details about these and more awesome church events. That's not it, but that's okay. I would invite us all now to greet your neighbor by introducing yourself. Please remember that COVID is indeed still going around, and if you would rather just wave at people instead of shaking hands or licking them, that is okay. I will ring the chime to call us back. We gather and worship to find meaning and to live more deeply. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to be our better selves, calling us to live with wisdom and compassion. Our church theme for November is repair. As we know, there's a lot of repair work to be done in this country. We need to remember that we commit to doing this repair work together. That is why we are here. That is why we are in community together. Through our rage, grief, hopelessness, we commit to do this work together, because together we are stronger. We are glad you are with us here this morning. I am glad you are here with us this morning. Let us now silence our cell phones for this time of worship together. Now is time for chalice lighting. Lacey is going to light our chalice today. May this chalice flame remind us of some of our strongest emotions: love, determination, passion, anger. May we remember that there are no good or bad emotions. The choices we make and the actions we take are where harm and healing take place. Please join us in our opening hymn, number 1028, The Fire of Commitment. Let us now stand in body or spirit to sing our opening hymn. That was entirely my fault and a paste and copy and paste mistake. Please join us in the affirmation. Love is the doctrine of the church. Quest for truth is the sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve life and fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all. This month, Share the Plate offering goes to Tewa Women United. Our offering will go to advance their work of relational activity, embodying courageous spaces that center Indigenous women and girls to connect with ancestral knowingness, healing strengths, and life ways for the well-being of all. All cash and undesignated funds that are received will go directly to this organization. Please feel free to use the QR code for the Givelify app on the screen. Not Sequoia. John and Rebecca, will you help pass the, will you please help pass the baskets? Thank you, choir, for that beautiful song. And thank you for your generosity this morning. May these gifts help to continue to center Indigenous women and our Earth Mother in our local community and our world. During this time, you are invited to come up to our Candles of Community space, light a candle, and write a joy or sorrow in our book, if you would like. Joys and sorrows that are written will then be read aloud. We will all join in singing our meditation song, number 352, Find a Stillness Together, and please feel free to come up during the song and light a candle for anything that might be on your heart today. Nyla's father, who is in the hospital and at crisis point, and her brother, who is with him. That's for Nyla. That's a concern. This is a concern for all the trans and GNC people as we face an uncertain future. And this is for all the joys and concerns that we carry in our heart, but are not ready or willing to voice aloud.
So, this is sort of a prayer. Oh God, wow, I'm really pissed off. Things really have gone so wrong, but I know there's potential in my rage. This rage, it can crush me, or it can push me to stand for what is right and to speak clearly when I feel doubt or fear. This fire, this burning in my chest and in my stomach, it can incapacitate me, but maybe it could propel me to fight for justice and demand equity with clear conviction. Let me remember that my rage is born of love and commitment, and let me act accordingly, which doesn't mean I'm going to be nice.
Now is the time for our story for all ages. If you are young or young at heart, please feel free to come up and join us on the rug. And telling us our story for all ages today is Mike is my brother, and John Faucett is my dad. And he has some animals for people to perhaps, I think, help out with the story.
So what we have here is the four characters are Ruby. Would someone like to take Ruby? Okay. And we have Benny the bird. We have Tushki the bear. There we go. And we have Flitter the butterfly. We have Flitter the butterfly. Okay, so this story was originally written by a computer named ChatGPT. But like all writers, it needed some editing, so Mimi and I have modified it somewhat. So, once upon a time in a bright and cheerful meadow, there was a rabbit named Ruby. Ruby loved to play with her friends, Tushki the bear, and when I say their name, raise them up, Tushki the bear, Benny the bird, and Flitter the butterfly. Every day they would race around the meadow, share snacks, and tell stories. But sometimes when things didn't feel right, Ruby, which you can raise up, would start to feel a strange, hot sensation in her chest. Her heart would beat faster, and her face would get all tight. It wasn't a pleasant feeling, and Ruby didn't quite know what it was at first. It was like something inside her was telling her, stop. One day, while the friends were playing hide and seek, Benny decided it would be fun to play a trick on Ruby. He swooped down and snatched her favorite scarf right off her neck, flying it high up into the air. Hey, Ruby called out, feeling that strange, hot feeling grow inside of her. That's my scarf. Give it back. But Benny just giggled and flew higher, teasing her. Ruby's heart raced, and the heat in her chest became stronger. Her cheeks turned red, and she could feel her body getting tense. She wanted to shout at Benny, but she stopped. Instead, she looked at her friends and said, I don't like this. I feel really upset. Flitter fluttered down to Ruby's side, sensing that something was wrong. What's going on, Ruby? She asked kindly. I don't know, Ruby said, clutching her hands together. I just feel really bad. Benny took my scarf, and I told him to stop, but he didn't listen. Flitter smiled gently and sat down beside her. Ruby, what you're feeling is anger. Anger is like a red flag that tells us when something isn't right, like when someone disrespects our boundaries. Your boundary is like a fence that protects what matters to you. your feelings, your things, and your space. When Benny took your scarf without asking, he crossed your boundary. Ruby thought for a moment. So, when I feel angry, it's because my boundary was crossed. Exactly, Tushki said. Anger is your way of saying, that's not okay, and it helps you know when to stand up for yourself. Ruby's eyes brightened as she understood. So it's okay to feel angry? Of course, Tushki said. Anger is a natural feeling. It's not bad. It's just telling you that something is off and you need to take action. But what's important is how we use our anger. Ruby looked up at Benny, still flying above her, his feathers ruffling in the wind. I'm going to tell Benny how I feel. Ruby took a deep breath, and with courage in her heart, she called out to Benny, Benny, I don't like it when you take my things without asking. My scarf is important to me, and it hurts my feelings when you don't respect that. Benny, who had been laughing, suddenly stopped and looked down at Ruby. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Ruby. I didn't mean to upset you. I was just playing around. Ruby smiled. I know you were just having fun, but it's important to me that my things are respected. I'm glad we can talk about it. Ruby felt proud of herself. She had listened to her anger, and instead of letting it control her, she had used it to express her feelings and set a clear boundary. She had shown Benny where the line was, and he had listened. From that day on, Ruby knew that when she felt that hot, tight feeling in her chest, it wasn't something to be afraid of. It was just her red flag telling her when something wasn't right. And now she knew how to use it to take care of herself and let others know what she needed. Thank you.
Welcome to the pulpit, Mike Adams, for our message.
Testing, all right. In preparation for today, I was looking on the UU website for Los Alamos, and I noticed that the kids leave right now, and they aren't today. So I'm going to ad-lib a bit here, because there are things, there's some specifics that I'm probably going to avoid right now. At the same time as I want to acknowledge that we're talking about real life. There was a conversation recently on a Facebook something in Los Alamos. There's a homeless guy who spends a lot of time near the cooperative market. And apparently he was in the library, which is a public building paid for by taxes. And there was a conversation on some Facebook board about what if the kids see him. And I got really pissed off when I read that. Like, are they going to be permanently injured because they see someone who doesn't have a home, like a building inside of which they can return every day? Is that somehow, what is, I don't get it, but it pisses me off. It feels like prejudice. I was homeless. I was homeless in the streets of Albuquerque and drunk. And there were white supremacists visiting violence upon homeless people. And it was terrifying for me. Today's talk is closely related to something that I took on earlier this summer at the encouragement from my wife, Tara. She asked me if I would be interested in becoming trained and certified to facilitate a parenting curriculum called Circle of Security Parenting, which is based on decades of research into secure attachment theory. And it takes this topic of secure attachment parenting and turns it into a fairly simple model which people, almost regardless of their education level, can understand and apply to their parenting. And then they can, with practicing this model, they can give their kids what their kids need to grow up with a secure attachment. People who have a secure attachment are more successful in relationships in their life as they go through life. They are people who, like Ruby, are able to tell their friend, hey, that hurt. I don't like it when you disrespect my belongings. And people who have secure attachment are like Ruby's friend who say, wow, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm really sorry. Then there's the rest of us who don't have secure attachment. We have an avoidant attachment. We have an anxious attachment. Or we have, like me, a disorganized attachment. And that makes life difficult and scary for us and for the people who love us. The reason that this is relevant and why I picked some of this in terms of this month's theme of repair is because what you heard in that story was repair. You heard Ruby say, "Ouch, that hurt," and channel her anger. And then you heard the person who harmed her receive that message, employ empathy, be with Ruby's anger, and apologize and repair the relationship. But what I'm going to talk about today is what happens when you can't get that kind of repair. What if you say, "I want my scarf back," and rather than saying, "Oh, I'm sorry," they toss it in the fire and say, "I don't care about your feelings"? How do you repair that? I'm going to say you can't necessarily repair that relationship unless the other side takes on some personal growth. But what I'm interested in is, how does Ruby repair from the trauma of that abuse? And I'm going to talk about some of the abuse that maybe a lot of people here hadn't considered, and how that appears, and how that manifests, and how that affects people as we go into the world. I have started listening to a book by a therapist, a senior therapist named, I can't find my notes now because I'm nervous. I need to acknowledge that I normally do not feel nervous when I'm going to talk in public. I know that I am a good speaker. I'm an effective speaker. I've talked to rooms with hundreds of people, 300 or 400 people, and caused them to laugh and cry. I know I'm an effective speaker. Today, I'm talking about a topic. I'm going to be vulnerable in a way that I'm not accustomed to being vulnerable. And it may not feel out there like I'm vulnerable because I'm pissed off. But I'm sharing that with you. And that is the vulnerability. Because it hurts. And anger, I don't think anger is a secondary emotion. I think it is a primary emotion, and it comes up when we are harmed. If you're walking through a crowded room and you accidentally step on someone's foot, and let's say you're wearing, wooden-soled shoes, and you weigh, maybe like me, 200 pounds, and that person is like, "Hi there." That person is like, "Ow, get off my foot," and they shove you. I think most people would be like, "I'm so sorry," right? That would be normal. Like, if someone did that to me, I really struggle with the idea that I don't think I would, under those circumstances, say, "Hey, don't cuss at me," I think I'd be like, "Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to step on your foot. I'm so sorry. Can I get you some ice?" or, something like that. That's a normal reaction to stepping on someone's foot. Where we miswire ourselves is when we don't physically step on someone's foot. When we do something that activates a wound in someone based on their lifelong experience with being on the wrong end of misogyny and sexism. My poor wife, for years, has been asking me to get off her effing foot. And I keep saying, but I'm a good person. How many women can relate to that? Men, look around. Keep your hands up. Look around. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you stepped on someone's foot. Just apologize. Try to learn from it. Try to pay attention. I did this thing. It harmed someone I care about. I can be with that anger. That anger is justified. I can apologize for it, and I can try to repair the relationship. Or I can say, you don't need to talk to me like that. I'm a good person. Right? That's called the triple invalidation threat. And men, we do it all the time. I mean, women do it too. Don't get me wrong. Like, nobody's off the hook as a human being. But men, we do it all the time. We judge ourselves by our intentions and not by the impact that we had. And if you really look at it in terms of I stepped on someone's foot, maybe it helps, because it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you had a blind spot, and maybe you could pay attention and not have that blind spot in the future. So I started listening to this book. By Dr. Ken Hardy. It's called Racial Trauma, Clinical Strategies and Techniques for Healing Invisible Wounds. And I just stumbled upon it while watching a YouTube video about how do you deal with trauma or repair when the rupture can't be addressed. And I stumbled upon this book because there was a therapist being interviewed who said, I just read this book. It is going to change the way I practice therapy. And he said, I think every therapist needs to read this. It is only the second book that I have ever read that I would say that about. I think it needs to be a staple for every therapist everywhere, period. And he named some other book. I am not a mental health professional, so I don't know these books, right? I just know this one. But he referenced some other book, which apparently is like canon or something like that. And he was interviewing the author, and the author was like, oh, well, thank you. And as I started to listen to this book on Audible, I completely understand why this Caucasian therapist said that. Because Dr. Hardy starts to break down the invisible impacts of growing up with dark skin in a society that values white skin over dark skin on an unconscious level. And I started to map that over to other forms of oppression. What's it like to grow up as a queer person in a society that devalues who you are and feeling like you have to hide that? What's it like to grow up in a society where fundamentally who you are is not acceptable to some significant segment of the population? It causes invisible wounds. It causes invisible wounds that are invisible to the person who's receiving them, invisible to the society in which we live, and we just go through life coping with it, and we think it's normal because that's how it's always been the whole time we were growing up. And Dr. Hardy said, it is not possible to grow up in this society with dark skin and not have rage. I say it's not possible to grow up in this society as a plus person, as a woman, as a person of color, and not have rage. It's not possible. It is possible to have rage and not know that you have rage. That's possible. I can attest to that. So I'm just going to start here. According to Every Town for Gun Safety, the number of trans people murdered in the U.S. rose 93% from 2017 to 2021. It almost doubled. From 2017 to 2021. That roughly tracks with the next president's previous term. I wonder if his anti-trans rhetoric influenced the sharp increase in murders. I'm not saying it did, I just wonder. In his recent campaign, he promised to cut funding for inclusive schools, including any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content into the lives of our children. From 2017 to 2023, the murder rate for trans people in the USA increased by 93%. The president-elect promised that if elected, he would cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. That was a campaign promise. He also promised to ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth. He promised these things. He was elected with more than 50% of the popular vote. His party captured all three branches of government. And the last time he was in power, the murder rate for trans people jumped by 93%. I'm going to repeat that because I want that point to be driven home. I have trans friends. I have trans family. I gotta be honest, I'm kind of pissed off. It might be more accurate to say I'm feeling a lot of rage, but it feels more visceral to say I'm really pissed off. Because he promised to strip Title IX protections from trans students on day one of his presidency. He named a policy proposal the Plan to Protect Children from Left-Wing Gender Insanity. He promised, upon my inauguration, I'll direct the FDA to convene an independent outside panel to investigate whether transgender hormone treatments and ideology, whatever that means, increase the risk of extreme depression, aggression, and even violence. The science is in on this. It's not a question. There's data from more than 27,000 trans patients in the United States. HRT overwhelmingly improved mental health, reduced suicide attempts, addictive behavior, and depression, according to a 2022 article published by Stanford Medical School. However, during his first term, the rate of trans murder almost doubled, increasing by 93% from 2017 to 2021. Yet we reelected him. I'm really pissed off. Are you? Yes. Let's get a show of hands. If you're pissed off, raise your hand. Look around. Good. I'm glad. I want people to be pissed off. I want us to get in touch with our anger. I want us to understand that anger is part of repair. It can drive us to do the right thing when we're afraid. I was terrified through most of my life to stand up when I saw bullying happening. I was horribly bullied in middle school, and I was terrified to stand up for someone. And it's kind of a ridiculous story in a way, but I got my kids into a karate class because I didn't want them to be bullied the way I had been. And I got myself into the karate class too. And I got my purple belt, and I remember having the thought when I got my purple belt, I could defend myself effectively if I had to. I didn't think much of it besides that. But what happened was, within a week, I was in the office, and I heard this guy who had a lot of social power in the office and who had been bullying me quite effectively. I heard him make an anti-gay joke in the office. And we had just had this, actually it was at the time a pretty incredible, what's it called when you, harassment training, which they did away with and they just brought in some third party, like make a bunch of money harassment training the next year. But we had had this like really thoughtful 4-hour harassment training with role-playing and discussion and stuff, and it was really impactful to me. And so I just had that a few days before that, and I heard this guy make this joke, and I turned to him and I said, hey, if there's people in the office who are in the closeted, you are making a hostile work environment for them. And he looked at me and put a smirk on his face, and he said, are you trying to tell us something about yourself, Mike? He was going to go ahead and try to use homophobia to get me to shut up. And I don't know what happened. It was something about that thought that I could effectively defend myself if I had had to a few days earlier. I turned to him and I said, I guess if I were, I'd have a really good reason to go to HR now, wouldn't I? And he was like, never mind. That's the first time I ever stood up for someone being bullied in my whole life. I walked around with deep shame because of my fear to stand up to someone, to stand up for someone. So, a lot of people raise their hands that you're pissed off. What are you going to do about that? Just think about that through today. What are we going to do about that? My wife told me that I can have a hard time because of time constraints sticking the landing on some of these talks, right? Because I could go on, like I do a lot of research when I'm going to talk about something like this. And I could go on, I'm telling you, I could go on for an hour or two on this, no problem, and still have a hard time sticking the landing. So I'm going to just tell you what the landing is. And the landing is we need to be in a dialogue, in inquiry about what is community. Because I live in the community of Los Alamos, but that's not my safe community. I have to build my safe community. The people who are going to hold my anger, help me organize my emotions, let me know that I'm loved and worthwhile, carry me through when I'm suffering from my traumatic responses to the stuff that I've endured in life. Kids. I was going to offer a disclaimer that I might accidentally cuss, but I'm not going to. I'm going to start to. So I want to say, I want to draw a distinction between nice and being unkind. I said I'm not necessarily going to be nice, but my intention is never to be unkind. I am unkind, but I don't intend to be. And what I need from my community is when I'm unkind, I need my community to let me know I made a mistake and to give me the empathy and the understanding and to help me learn how to be better the next time so that I can be a better person moving forward. But it doesn't mean that we pretend that I didn't harm someone. And as long as I'm willing to try and repair things, as long as I'm willing to try and repair relationships, then I deserve that. The question around boundaries is, when are we dealing with a bad player? When are we dealing with someone who's not willing, who just says, my bigotry is right, who voted because they were told, your bigotry is not only okay, it's good. Or maybe they're not really comfortable with the overt bigotry, but they're okay with it as long as their gasoline costs a few cents less. I'm not saying we should be cruel or unkind, but I am saying we should quit with the veneer of politeness. Because politeness is why we haven't taken hardly any ground in racism and bigotry and bias in this country for most of my life. Because we're so busy being polite and making sure no one is uncomfortable that we're incapable of holding the people to account for the harm that they're doing. So think about your communities. Think about what you want to say, and think about who can be in your safe community and who you just need to be polite and frank with, but they don't get to be in that safe community.
Thank you so much, Mike. I love you. Please stand in body or spirit and sing our closing song, 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People. as we extinguish our chalice, may we take the power and strength of our anger to recognize the wrongs taking place. Let our anger stoke the courage and determination to strive for justice instead of hiding in despair. Please join hands if you so choose for our closing song.